Today we're checking out Trailmakers, a game that combines physics and vehicular engineering to a whole new level with the sole purpose of stopping me from becoming a pilot. But I won't stop today until I build a plane worthy of saving the planet from an evil corporation, and I don't think that's too much to ask given you can build space rockets in this game. But before we jump in, I would like to say a huge thank you to Trailmakers for sponsoring this video, and if you think you're a better vehicular engineer than I am, then make sure to check out the link in the description below. Now for this video, I am going to follow along with the story campaign, as Pioneers, which is the free update that's just been launched, has a load of new stuff to cover, including a new onboarding experience, which will get me up to speed with the game. But there's also a sandbox mode where you can fly around in space or even test and build race cars against other players, as this game can be played with up to 8 players in multiplayer, which would have made my life so much easier when taking on the evil corporation bosses. Now I know the art style may not appeal to everyone, but I highly recommend giving it a chance, as the heart of the game is about problem solving, how to construct working vehicles, whether that's by air, land or sea, with the resources and blocks that you have available. For example, in Pioneers, Trailmakers have released a whole new campaign based on the concept of resource gathering, crafting and accomplishing missions to level up your character. The more you level up, the more blocks you have access to, and as you defeat each of the bosses, you'll also gain access to new blocks, which will help you in your adventure into new biomes. And this is just the start, as the team do plan on releasing more free updates in the future. First, we're going to pick our character and customize them. Obviously, I'm going with something similarly dashing to the looks of Han Solo, before being then thrust into a tutorial. Now we're going to skip ahead for this, but the gist of it is that for each problem that you come across, you can solve it by editing your vehicle, whether that's new tires, weapons, or engines. Once the tutorial is finished, you're free to roam the world as you see fit, aiding the settlements, whether that's rescuing them, running bus routes or resources between the settlements, or even taking out the Botnak units, which is the corporation that sent mega drills to drill through the planet's crust to reach and harvest the planet's core. In return for completing the missions set at each of the settlements, you'll get experience points towards your own level, and the settlement also gains experience, with each new settlement level resulting in additional power that you're able to use in your vehicles. Now there are a lot of settlements, and if you're looking at building the most powerful vehicles, it'll be quite the journey to max out the settlements, but I'm sure with new updates they're going to bring more variety to the missions as the game progresses as well. Whilst you explore the world, you'll be able to harvest the resources that are scattered around the map, and these resources will respawn over time, and you'll have to venture throughout the world in order to find the resources that you need, whether that's bauxite, which can be found easily in the desert, fusion cores, which are found in the mud plain swamps, or titanium, which is more of the end game areas. Now with these resources, you'll be able to craft blocks to use in your vehicles, whether that's crafting better weapons to fight the hostile enemies, or try and build a boat that actually stays afloat, because I had a lot of problems with buoyancy. Now when it comes to building vehicles in the game, the system is simple enough to get started with. A basic car requires just 3 things really: wheels, a seat and an engine. Though if you're expecting it to actually turn, you will need an axle as well for the wheels. Now if you want a smoother ride, perhaps you'll actually have to invest in suspension, and depending on where it will be used, you may want to consider the tires for different grips. You may need a better engine, and if you're transporting frogs between settlements, you're also going to need seats for them. There's then resource nodes. If you're collecting resources, you're going to need a miner, and you're probably going to have to use the miner instead of other weapons because they all cost power to use. Thankfully though, you are able to build 4 different vehicles and then swap between them as you see fit at any point instantaneously, which means you can go from a harvesting vehicle to a battle wagon in seconds, or even a boat if you find yourself in the river. Now 4 slots does work pretty well, though I think 5 slots would be better, as this allows you to have a dedicated transport, a vehicle dedicated to resource harvesting, a weapon platform, a boat and a plane. But the game is designed to challenge you, and to be fair, the in-game blueprint system allows you to save your vehicle blueprints and then return to them at any point, quickly and easily, so it isn't really necessary. Failing that, you can also grab blueprints from the Steam Workshop, where there are some truly incredibly well-designed vehicles out there for you to use yourself. Now with the battle wagon in hand, we're going to attempt the first boss, whom we need to destroy so that we can unlock the boat pieces so that we can venture into the next biome. There's plenty of chaos, but by destroying its weak points, we're able to focus on the boss's core whilst we shrug off the waves of enemies. And with the boss destroyed, we can then start focusing on the building of a boat. But it's always easier to start off with the blueprints that the game provides, unless you're willing to take on a challenge. After exploring the mudflats, we came across our second boss, and with the new grenade launchers attached that we've unlocked, I'm able to take out the shielding whilst taking on the Mega Drill's vents. In order to aid in my fight against the drill, I have actually placed all of my weapons on my starboard. This meant that the boat was slightly unstable, but it did do the job even if I couldn't defend from attacks on the port side. But this did mean, having destroyed the second boss, that we're finally able to have access to the flying accessories. However, with the blocks being rather expensive to build, I went down the route of using the game's blueprint. This would have been fine had I had all the resources to build it. Instead, we built half the hot air balloon and then attached jets to it. Now, in my mind, it was a perfectly feasible option, but in reality, it was horrendous. We needed a way to propel the airship forwards, and my solution with the engines just didn't work. So instead, I went back to the drawing board with a propeller in mind. However, I hadn't realized that the starboard thruster was also using the same button as my propeller, which resulted in us flying in circles. But this challenge was incredibly fun to overcome. Eventually, I did settle on an airship that would stagger me up to the new biome, with the hope of getting more resources to build our fighter later on. And I should mention, there are logic gates that you can use in this game if you're really interested in trying to optimize the perfect vehicle. As I staggered across to the late game biome, I must admit it didn't go too well, and this was because the new biome seemed to have flak weapons, which were particularly hard to dodge in a hot air balloon. So instead, I returned to the island, harvesting what resources I could until I was able to build our first plane. Now, without any foreknowledge of how to build one, I made several attempts of building planes. Some worked better than others, but each result helped me refine the design, and that's the fun of this game. I'm looking forward to actually jumping back in and working out how to improve on the vehicles I already have. But after much trial and error, as well as getting a firm understanding of the controls, we built this fighter. Now, I was pretty happy with the propeller system. It was a touch too slow, and I was worried the flak was going to get me. So instead, I added 4 thrusters in its place and made the front more aerodynamic, allowing for better lift, which you can see from the overlay here. And that resulted in this. And then I added 2 miniguns, and I was able to evenly distribute the recoil coil for the plane while we were flying. But having mastered aerodynamics, I went all in dogfighting with the enemy, eventually taking out all 3 fighters before turning on the flak turrets that were defended by a shield. Strafing run after strafing run, we managed to take out the shield generator, and then we managed to take out the flak towers, overcoming our nemesis. which leaves now only the stars to explore. But I do hope you've really enjoyed this look at Trailmakers. Make sure to check out the link to the game in the comments below. And special thanks, of course, does go to Trailmakers for sponsoring this video, as well as all of our amazing supporters on Patreon. Most notably our Lunar Eclipse patrons, Firefless, The Calamity, Ben, Star and Seeker Kala, as well as our Blood Moon of the day, which today is Jenny. Until next time, as always, ciao for now.